Hey y'all, I'm so excited to talk with you. Oh my goodness, POCFs unite. In this episode, I'm going to share who I am and the slightly rough road that led me to become a partner of a commercial fisherman. Heads up, I mention addiction, sex, and long distance dating because, as we know, it's a big part of this lifestyle that not many people want to discuss. So, yep, we're going there right out of the gates. Hope you enjoy. I'm Megan, host of the Partners of Commercial Fisherman podcast. This show is dedicated to girlfriends, fiancés, and wives of commercial fishermen to connect and feel less alone. As we know, this lifestyle isn't for the faint of heart. So this is our space in the world to discuss the highs and lows of being in a romantic relationship with a fisherman. Because it's different than being a family member or friend. It just is. Join in to laugh, vent, and share stories with others who get your lifestyle. So what are you waiting for? Let's dive in. Hi, POCFs. This is Megan Waldrep. Welcome to the first ever podcast for Partners of Commercial Fishermen, for girlfriends, fiancés, and wives to connect and feel less alone. As I said, I'm your host, Megan Waldrep. This is the first time I've ever done a podcast, so we're just going to go with it. I thought I would give you a little background on how I even got to this position as a commercial fisherman's wife. And yeah, let's just start there. So I've been with my commercial fisherman since 2015. I had no idea what it meant for him to be a commercial fisherman when he told me he fished in Bristol Bay. I thought, cool, Alaska. Are there lines involved? I don't know if you're using a reel and rod. No idea. It probably took me about a full year for me to fully grasp what he did. So he was a deckhand, has been in Bristol Bay for 15 years, and he is now a captain for spiny lobster fishing in California. And he's done that for I think this is about 3 years. And yeah, within that time, I have definitely learned a lot. And a lot of it has been learning a lot about myself and a lot about our relationship and certain boundaries and certain joys and things that I could bring into the experience to make this an incredible life, because it isn't easy, that's for sure. I should say that we don't have children and we do not have pets. And I realize that for a lot of us that is not the case. And so my experience is a little different than that, but I also want to hold space for you out there that have children and pets and know that there are so much more responsibilities on your plate. I talk about a lot of it on my blog, meganwaldrep.com, MEGANWALDREP.com. We run the gamut from letters from different partners, commercial fishermen reaching out, and moms sharing their experiences, and how to send a care package to the sex lives, because that's also a thing, intimacy. So anyway, I'm going to start from the beginning and give you my full background. I normally don't do this because it takes a hot minute, but we're going to do it because this is what this podcast is all about. It's to connect with you and make you feel not alone, because that's actually how this whole thing got started. So anyway, I should start at the beginning. I was born on an Army base in Oklahoma, Lawton, Oklahoma, Fort Sill, actually. I say that because my background as a military brat really has enhanced my experience as a POCF and the empathy that I have for our community, because I've seen women in the military standing next to their partners and men as they go off and do dangerous jobs. And I realized that that is exactly what we're doing here. So anyway, I was born in Oklahoma. I was there for about 3 months. We moved to Charleston, South Carolina, which is where my soul lives, as I like to say. I was there for about 6 years, and my dad got back into the Army. We moved to Hawaii and spent my entire elementary school years at Moanalua Elementary. Go Dolphins. And yeah, my little sister was born there. We were at the Pink Hospital on the hill, Tripler Hospital. And then after that, my dad got orders to move to Heidelberg, Germany. So we were there for 4 years. So all of my middle school, awkward middle school years, and freshman year of high school was there, which I'm just going to flash forward. I found out that one of my friends from Germany in middle school is actually a wife of a lobster fisherman in Maine. He's a third generation lobsterman. And we reconnected through Instagram. So that's a whole other thing. You'll hear more about her later. Her name's Monique Combs. Amazing. So after Germany, we moved to Augusta, Georgia, and that was our return to the South. And that was definitely a shocker to me in its own way. Went to a brand new high school, and I was like, where are the minorities? There was absolutely, I was one of the minorities, if you will. I'm half Puerto Rican. So that was kind of interesting to come back to the States and into a school that, kids grew up together all their lives, known each other from, their parents went to school together. And that was something I've never understood and always longed for, that ultimate, to me, the ultimate American experience. But anyway, after high school, which by the way, I loved being in Augusta. I fell in love for the first time there. I still have great friends there. That is definitely one place that's always in my heart. All these places are, but definitely want to represent Augusta. Also, let's see, after that, I went to the University of South Carolina for freshman year of high school or college. And then decided I want to go to Georgia because I got free tuition because of the Hope Scholarship. So I went to Athens, University of Georgia, partied my ass off, learned the hard way. I'll just say the start of my alcoholism was there. Then after about a year, moved back to South Carolina, graduated from USC. And that's when I started a fashion company. I started designing t-shirts, actually redesigning vintage t-shirts and making them into cute women's like tank tops and strapless tops. And I wore them for myself. And then a woman who owned a boutique in Columbia, South Carolina, she's like, oh, let's just try these out and see if they do, how they do. They sold out within a week. I'd made more. They sold out. I thought, wow, there's a business here. I had no idea that was a thing. After I graduated, I pursued fashion, moved to New York City for 2 years, and basically was like a sweatshop in this small little studio with my friend who was a traveling nurse. And we had a blast. But I had no idea what I was doing. I was just sewing my butt off, getting all these accounts. Probably had 13 different stores that were selling my tops at this point. And by the end of year 2, I was burned out. I could not do it. And I have to say, California had always been calling me. So I felt that New York was just a jumping off point. However, not until I had to move back to Charleston, South Carolina, encouraged by my mother. Why not? Go somewhere familiar. And plus it's closer to home. So I did. I was there for 5 years, developed my fashion design business and a huge drinking problem. I mean, that's a whole other podcast for another day. But yeah, that was the best of times and it was the worst of times. But regardless, by the end of year 5, I needed to get the F out. I felt that I was literally drowning myself, and in a sense I was. So finally I just said, I gotta go. I had $1,000. I had a car that my mom so graciously passed on. And I stuffed it full of clothes, and I was doing kids' clothes at this point, trying to make that dream alive, keep that dream alive. I had sewing machines. I also wrote a children's book, co-authored a children's book. So I had the books, the sewing machines, and the clothes in the back, and I just took off. I guess I'm going to go there. I wasn't sure how I was going to make it across the country. Whenever I was so deep into my drinking at that point that I'm like, well, am I going to drink on the road? What is this? How am I going to stay sober enough to get across the country? Well, it turns out I had a major breakdown about a week before I left. And it was not good. But it was the moment that told me, like, I need to quit doing this. I need to just get the hell out of Dodge and go. So that's what I did. I got in the car. My mom rode with me to Oklahoma. We saw my grandmother. And then about a week after visiting grandma, I said goodbye to my mom, my grandmother, and I just took every small road I could to get to California. I thought, this is the last time, first and last time I'll ever do this. I need to take advantage of this. And so I did. I took the back roads. I was singing to the top of my lungs, bawling, crying, smoking cigarettes. My mom doesn't like to hear that. All the things just for me to feel, feel like who am I? Who is Megan? Because my identity in Charleston, it was not working anymore. And I've always wanted to write. So for some reason I had enough guts when I finally got to California. I think I did the fashion thing for a while. I tried to get the clothes into stores and things like that. But eventually I was staying at a family's house. They live outside of LA. And I thought, I don't need to live in LA. I'm just going to go travel the coast and see where I'm going to land. So I traveled up the coast. I probably drove, I drove like an hour. I thought, this is Ventura. I've never known where Ventura is. This is cool. Kept driving, saw this little town called Carpinteria, and I turned off on the exit and I thought, oh my God, this little town is so adorable. It's just this little strip, the main strip that runs into the beach, all these cute little stores. It just felt super homey. I thought this might be the place. I kept driving. I saw a sign for Montecito and I'm like, I think Oprah lives there. Kept going, saw Santa Barbara, beautiful mountains. It reminded me of my childhood in Hawaii. And I thought, okay, well, I can sustain a life in Carpinteria. If Santa Barbara's here, I can make this work. So I kept driving north just to check out the coast. Did Big Sur, and ended up in Sacramento. My uncle had a place up there, so I landed there. And it was then that I decided, all right, I'm moving to Carpinteria. So about 6 months later, there's a side story about Big Sur that we'll go into later. But 6 months later, I get to Carp. I find a random roommate through somebody. I didn't even see the place. I said I'd take it because it was on Palmetto Lane, and the palmetto tree is the state tree of South Carolina, and I knew it was a sign. I get this little house, room and a home, and this was my big beginning. I was going to start over. I had like steel cut oats from Costco, and some other food that I had in bulk. That was all I could afford. Oh, and a blow up mattress. And, I've always wanted to write. So I had enough guts to pitch to a local paper, and they took it. They thought, okay, great. You could be a columnist. I could not believe it. I could not believe that someone wanted to pay me a whopping $50 a column, if you will, or 50 cents. It didn't matter. I couldn't believe that someone would actually pay me to put me in print. It was a dream realized. I had no idea. Oh, that was a lot. But this is where Chris comes in. Fast forward 3 years later, I'm editor at the paper. The paper's floundering, by the way, but I was editor. The publisher gave me a chance. He's like, listen, the paper's going down the tubes. And if you want to steer this ship, if it sinks, that's not your fault. And if it does well, hey, that's great. Look at all this experience you got. So I had enough money to pay my rent and have some extracurriculars going on. And I was about a year into an editor, and I just started a secret column in the paper under a pen name called Elizabeth Rose that was called I Heart SB. And it was a Sex and the City meets Santa Barbara that one of my friends had encouraged me to write, since I'd been going on dates and telling her all these funny stories. And she's like, oh, you gotta write about these. These are great. So I thought, all right, whatever. I'm going to do it. So I'm writing the secret column. And one day I'm in the office and I hear someone walking down the hall, and I'm like, what is that? No one's really ever here on a Friday at 4 p.m. And I hear someone knock at the door, and they go, are you Megan? And I turned around and gave this man a once over and thought, yes, I am Megan. I am whoever you want me to be. It was my now husband, Chris, this beautiful, tall California man. I mean, just my love. There he was standing on the doorway. And I remember thinking to myself, you are going to flirt with this man harder than you've ever flirted before. You've had training. You are Elizabeth Rose. You are going to lock this down. And if he says no, that's okay, because you have a deadline and this is content. for the next piece. So I had at least that bravery that thought I had nothing to lose. So I thought, okay, he came into the office because his friend was actually the publisher of the paper. And Chris was between, he had just gotten back from Bristol Bay from fishing. And he was visiting his family in Santa Barbara and thought, hey, I'll just stop by and say hey to my friend Tim. So that's why I was there. Tim was not at the office, thankfully, because that's where Chris came to see me. I think the office manager said, oh, you should meet Megan. She's new and she's right down in the office at the end. So that's how that whole thing got started. Anyway, as I'm staring into this beautiful man's eyes, trying to act cool and not like a nerd, I thought, okay, all right, this is it. I'm not going to rush after him because I have a deadline. Thank you very much. But if he's outside when I'm done, I'm going to ask him out because A, he didn't ask me out. What? Anyway, that's a whole other thing. So I get done rather quickly, I might add. I go outside and he's not there. And I'm like, well, I guess it wasn't meant to be. I remember talking to the office manager. I was like, that dude is super hot. She goes, oh, he's so nice too. He has just the nicest heart. And I'm like, cool. Well, I want to make out with him. Whatever. That's great about his heart and all, but whatever. But I couldn't even make out with him. He wasn't even he wasn't in the parking lot. So anyway, I get in my car. As I'm pulling out of the drive, I see Chris and Tim, the mutual friend, walking up. And I'm like, this is my chance. You got this, Megan. I rolled down the window and as cool and as calm as I could. I'm like, so, hey, it was really great to meet you. Which I later find out was super awkward. I think Tim saw the first part and he just started walking away. He was like, and scene, I'm out of here. Anyway, said, it was really great to meet you. Chris is like, oh, yeah, it was great to meet you too. And I thought, oh, I think it was just, I asked him out. I just said, hey, would you like to go to lunch with me on Sunday? And he said, that sounds great. It's awesome. I'll get your number from Tim. And I drove away like beaming. I was so nervous still, but I was like, hell yes. This hot guy, I get to stare at him during lunch. I have a new story. This is going to be great. Also, Chris lived in Washington at the time, so there was zero pressure. I'm like, this is not going to work out long distance. I don't think so. I just gotten my heart broken 6 months earlier from a long distance relationship. So I had sworn it off. I'm like, that doesn't matter. We'll make out, maybe get a little bit more. Who knows? But anyway, so we ended up meeting for lunch. He was between, I think helping his dad, like working on his dad's fishing boat in the harbor, in Santa Barbara Harbor. His dad is, or was a lobster fisherman as well. And so, yeah, we had like a 2-hour lunch. It was basically an interview, like a job interview. I'm sure you guys understand. Where I was like, hi, okay, so where are you from? Do you have any children? Do you have any pets? Let's go through this whole thing. What about marriage? Have you been married before? Blah, blah, blah. All the things. What's your blood type? I'm kidding, but kind of. And yeah, at the end, I thought, well, it was great to meet you. And gave him a hug and I was like, all right, that was it. And so I remember he turned around and goes, well, this doesn't have to be the last time we hang out. And I thought, oh yeah, no, totally. I mean, I'm totally available. Like, yeah, I was definitely going to be available for this hot dude. So anyway, I later found out that he delayed his flight another day and to take me out. So we ended up going to a movie. I think we went to go see Trainwreck. And yeah, and since then we were long distance dating for about a year, which for me was amazing because I was still living my life in Santa Barbara. I was still the single girl, kind of, I had my editor job and I was still going to shows at the Santa Barbara Bowl and getting up all the freebies at these restaurants I could get from the paper, the media, the perks of being an underpaid journalist, if you will. Some free foods from time to time. But anyway, so it was great. I could kind of ease into this relationship. It wasn't any pressure. He was doing his thing when we would visit each other at least once a month. So then it was time for him to go to Bristol Bay. Still had no idea what that meant. He came down to visit me and he said, well, yeah, I'm getting ready to go to Alaska. and I'll be gone for 3 months. And I'm like, wait, what? 3 months? I mean, okay, I see you, every few weeks. That's fine. But 3 months? Homie, I am in the prime of my life. I was 33 in California. It was about to be summertime. I'm like, you want me to hold out for you for how long? I mean, just saying. I said it really a lot nicer than that, but I was like, dude, I got needs, and this is going to be a struggle. And he knew, I mean, as most fishermen know, that not everybody can do this life. So what he did was he looked up, and I know y'all have probably heard this story so many times, but it's just so funny. This is when he looked up the Clone a Willy. And if you don't know, it's a self-molding, or it's like a make your own dildo kit. So you basically make a mold of your partner's penis. And I thought, God, that is so romantic that he was thinking of me like that. And let's try this. So we ended up going to the adult store in Santa Barbara, getting a kit, trying to make one. It was a hot mess. You can read about it on the blog. It was hilarious. Did not get the temperature right. Make sure the temperature is 90 degrees if you ever try this, which you should. And if you do, code POCF to get you 20% off. But anyway, side story. But yeah, that was a very intimate moment. It really brought us together. But that was also a huge entry into this life as a partner, a commercial fisherman. These small sacrifices that I didn't realize would kind of snowball to be so big. Also, this lifestyle that I kind of, well, no, I had no idea what I was getting into, but I was just kind of learning piece by piece. And it took me a while to get comfortable in it, honestly. I remember sitting around dinner tables with his family and thinking, wow, this is so cool. His sister commercially fish, like her husband, his dad, like everybody's talking about fishing. And then I'm like, this is really boring. I don't want to talk about boats and engines anymore. I'm so over this. Can we talk about art or writing or anything, pop culture? Like, please, Lord. And then it was the cycle of feeling guilty for that. And then it was does anybody understand what I'm going through? I don't want to feel bad. However, I need to vent as well, because 90% of this conversation is foreign to me. So I Googled how to date a commercial fisherman, and there was nothing online. I thought, how is there nothing online about dating a commercial fisherman? I mean, seriously, there's so many different support groups for military wives and things like that, but nothing for being with a commercial fisherman. I mean, this is like, we're in the trenches. This is legit. So I think it was about a year later, I thought, well, screw it. If there's nothing out there, I'm going to write it. I'm going to write this little piece that's going to be funny, but real and heartfelt. And that was 9 things you should know when you're dating a commercial fisherman. I had started my blog about, a few months before. And that was the first piece I ever wrote on commercial fishing and being with a commercial fisherman. And I should say the blog was started because I wanted to get my writing out there. The paper that I was editor for, they were super old school. They did not believe in putting things online. And I thought, well, I've written hours and hours and thousands of words. If I want to get them out there, I need to start my own website. And so anyway, I ended up putting the 9 things you should know about dating a commercial fisherman. And that was the one blog that I kept getting emails about. And it was so, I mean, I get all choked up. It was so meaningful to know that there were other people who understood, and I didn't feel like a bitch for thinking these things. I mean, honestly, I didn't feel alone. I'm like, oh, thank God there's other women out there who understand. And so I slowly started to lean into that more and started writing more pieces about dating a commercial fisherman and trickling in more email responses. And it thought, wow, this is amazing. This is something. There's a community out there for us, and we're just waiting to get together in some way. And maybe this is the way that we can do it. And this is actually a funny side story as well. One of the series that I started after that, I was in the middle. I think it was like the second of a series. So that means when you're writing like 2 to 4 blog posts about the same type of subject. And I decided that subject was going to be commercial fishing for this one. I was the second one. Chris called me and said, from Bristol Bay, he called me and said, I don't know if I told you there's a woman on the boat taking photos of us. And my first thought was, who the hell is this chick? And second of all, where can I get these photos so I can put them on the blog? It turns out to be Bree Dwyer, who from Deadliest Catch. I had no idea. I didn't even know I don't watch that show for obvious reasons because I don't want to terrify myself even more than I already do in my brain. But it was so funny. I had reached out to Bree and she was like, oh yeah, I'd love to share your photos. And she was like, and if you have, any questions, I know what it's like to date a commercial fisherman. I was like, oh really? I wonder what she knows. And then I Google it. I'm like, oh, her husband is on Deadliest Catch. Got it. She may know a few things. So that was really one of my first connections outside of Chris's family was Bree. And it's been so nice to just creatively work with her and just connect with her. And so she was one of the main inspirations for getting this whole thing started. Besides all the amazing emails that I've gotten from women around the world, y'all, from Canada, Australia, Indonesia. Okay. What? America, East Coast, West Coast. It's just been incredible. I really hope to connect with more on in the Gulf Coast and also the Great Lakes, like what's going on there. Come on, people. And around the world, Ireland, England. Oh yeah, we do have someone in England. We're everywhere and we all have the same heart. We all love our fishermen and we all go through these different emotions and we may feel that we're acting it alone, but I guarantee you that we're not. Oh man. So I just want to say, I appreciate you so much for being here. And if you've listened this long, thank you for being here. This is only going to get better. First one down. And all I want to say is, I love you. You are not alone. POCF Pride. We're here. If you have any questions, you could always reach out to me at support@meganwaldrep.com or like the podcast, comment, whatever. Let's show others that they are not alone too. We got this. I love you guys and I'll see you next time. Till next time. Bye. Hey POCFs. If you want to connect with others just like you can join the private forum today to chat with others who understand this lifestyle without judgment. And even better, if you want to hang out in real life, there is an all-inclusive POCF retreat happening this fall 2023. Both links are in the show notes. We can't wait to meet you. Hey y'all, I so appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen. To support our community, I'd love for you to join us by subscribing to this podcast, hitting the like button, and or posting a review. And if you're a POCF looking for more resources on how to navigate this unique lifestyle, things from long-distance dating to motherhood advice and everything in between, visit meganwaldrep.com. That's meganwaldrep.com. We can't wait to connect with you. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I can't wait to share more to come. If you want to read the blog, 9 Things You Should Know About Dating a Commercial Fisherman, I've added a link in the show notes so you can give it a read to see if you can relate. Thanks for listening today. Being here means you're a part of the POCF family, and we wouldn't be a community without you. I'm Megan, and this is the Partners of Commercial Fisherman podcast. As always, much love, POCF pride, and remember, you are not alone.